Imagine walking into a supermarket today and putting a cow on the checkout counter to pay for your groceries. Sounds crazy, right? But believe it or not, this is how trade actually worked in the early days. People simply exchanged goods for other goods. Today we pay with coins, banknotes, credit cards, or even cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. But how did all of this come about? How did money develop over thousands of years? In this video, we'll take a journey through the history of money, from barter to coins to paper money, and finally to digital and crypto. And by the end, you'll understand why money is much more than just paper or numbers on a screen. In the very beginning, there was no such thing as money. People lived in small communities. They produced what they needed to survive, and whenever someone had something that another person wanted, they simply traded. A farmer who had grain might exchange it with a hunter who had meat. At first, that sounds simple enough, but very quickly, people realized that barter had major problems. It only worked when both sides wanted exactly what the other had. This is what economists call the double coincidence of wants. Imagine you have bread and you want milk, but the milk farmer doesn't want bread. He wants new shoes. The trade collapses. To solve this problem, people began using certain goods as commonly accepted mediums of exchange. Salt, cattle, shells, and even rare stones became early forms of money. These were the first steps towards what we call commodity money. It wasn't money as we know it today, but it was a big step in that direction. Eventually, people needed something even more practical. Over 2,600 years ago, in the ancient kingdom of Lydia, what is now Turkey, the first coins were created. They were made of electrum, a natural mixture of gold and silver. These coins had important advantages. They were divisible, portable, durable, and hard to counterfeit. The idea spread quickly. Soon the Greeks and Romans were minting their own coins. Roman coins in particular became a standard across their empire, making trade across vast distances much easier. But coins weren't just money. They were also political tools. Emperors had their faces stamped on them, using money as a way to show power and authority. Of course, coins had their own problems. Precious metals were limited, and whenever emperors needed money, they simply reduced the silver or gold content in the coins. That was one of the earliest examples of inflation, money losing value over time. The next big revolution came from China. Around the year 800, merchants began using paper money. At first, it was nothing more than receipts. Merchants deposited their coins somewhere safe and received a paper note as proof. Soon, people started trading directly with those notes. When Marco Polo visited China in the 13th century, he was amazed. He wrote that paper money in China worked just like gold in Europe. For Europeans at the time, this idea was almost unimaginable. It wasn't until the 17th century that paper money really took hold in Europe, with banks like the Bank of England issuing the first banknotes. These were backed by gold. That meant every note in circulation represented a certain amount of gold stored in a vault. This system, called the gold standard, gave people confidence in their money. They knew that every banknote had a real, tangible value. But it also severely restricted governments. By the 20th century, with world wars, global trade, and economic crises, it became clear that there simply wasn't enough gold to keep up. In 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard. From that point on, the dollar was no longer tied to gold. And since then, we've lived in what's called a fiat money system. Fiat money has no intrinsic value. A banknote is just paper. It works because we all believe in it and because the government guarantees it. When you hold a 50-euro bill today, it's only valuable because we collectively trust that tomorrow you'll still be able to buy something with it. In the mid-20th century, another transformation began. The invention of credit cards and later ATMs changed money once again. In 1950, the Diners Club launched the first credit card. Soon, Visa and MasterCard followed. Today, many of us hardly use cash at all. We tap our cards, scan our phones, or transfer money online. The fascinating part? The vast majority of money today doesn't even exist physically. Over 90% of euros, for example, exist only as numbers in banking systems. In 2009, something completely new appeared: Bitcoin. It was invented by a person or group under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. The idea was revolutionary: a decentralized money system, independent of governments and banks. Instead of relying on trust in central authorities, Bitcoin uses blockchain technology. The blockchain is like a digital ledger, stored on countless computers worldwide. Every transaction is encrypted, transparent, and nearly impossible to manipulate. That's what makes Bitcoin unique. It's like digital gold, but it's not without problems. Prices swing wildly, mining consumes enormous amounts of energy, and governments still struggle with regulation. Still, Bitcoin created an entire industry. Thousands of cryptocurrencies have since been launched: Ethereum, Ripple, Solana, and many more. Some countries, like El Salvador, even adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. Others, like China, banned it completely. The big question remains: is crypto truly the money of the future, or is it simply another speculative asset like gold? One thing is clear: we are at a turning point. In many countries, cash is disappearing. At the same time, central banks are developing their own digital currencies, known as CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. China is already testing the digital yuan, and Europe is exploring the digital euro. In the future, money could be entirely digital and even programmable. Payments could be tied to conditions, automated and monitored. But this raises big questions. What about privacy? How much control should governments have over our money? And what will financial freedom look like? Looking back, we see that money has never been static. From barter to gold coins, from paper money to credit cards, and now Bitcoin, money has constantly reinvented itself. At its core, it's not about the paper or the metal, but about trust. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think money will look like in 30 years? Leave me a comment, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into finance and economics.